My name's Trevor. I'm one of the program engineering managers for Corvette, and more specifically the program engineering manager for the eRay. So I get the pleasure of talking to you a little bit about the eRay today, getting into a bit more technical detail. And with me I have David Simpson. You probably remember Dave Simpson, so let me try and get the volume up here. So, that better? We try now. Test, test. Test, test. Test, test. Alright, I'll just talk a bit louder. So with me is David Simpson. You probably remember David Simpson from other Corvette events as the transmission expert. Dave is actually our PAE expert, so expert and in charge of our front drive unit and the battery on the eRay. So Dave, after I talk, is going to talk a little bit more about the battery and the details of that, as well as the front drive unit or the electric motor. So the eRay, the fastest Corvette ever, 2.5 seconds 0 to 60 and 10.5 second quarter mile. And really what helps propel that is that front drive motor and battery system. So the all-wheel drive system in this car and being able to maximize the torque and get 100% torque on that front axle to really pull the car and improve the traction on the rear wheels is really what generates that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the eRay can do from a functionality point of view, and then maybe I'll get into a little bit more detail around the chassis, and then I'll pass on to Dave. So from an all-wheel drive point of view, so the rear axle and the front axle are actually completely separate from a propulsion standpoint. So there's no connection, there's no drive shaft, there's nothing that connects those two. It is also, for lack of some comments, it is also not a plug-in. So the complete energy system is, the energy is driven through the road. So energy is captured through braking, through coasting, going down a hill, anything that is propelling the vehicle without having to drive the front motor, we're capturing that energy and recharging the battery up. What does connect the two is really just brains, so chassis controls, and there's a TPM, integrated chassis control modules. There's modules within the vehicle that are really commanding the car and telling the car, based on your throttle input or any other input, where and how much torque to apply to each axle. To give some examples there, in a wide open throttle type maneuver from a standing start, when you are maybe doing that, trying to get that 2.5 seconds, he's commanding 100% torque to the front axle because it can, and you can get 100% torque on that electric motor to the front axle, really pulling that front axle while the engine, the ICE engine or internal combustion engine, is ramping up torque and able to really apply as much torque as it can to the rear wheels without braking traction or maximising the traction and the grip in the rear to really propel the car. Modes. So actually, maybe I'll talk a little bit more, about all-wheel drive. So all that happens without really you even knowing about. So there's nothing you need to do to tell the car, do I want to propel the car? From an electric standpoint, from an ICE standpoint, the brains behind the car is all doing that automatically. Apart from maybe having the screen up in the cluster display, there is a unique eRay display that tells you when the front axle or the rear axle is commanding torque. Apart from that, it is seamless. You wouldn't even know. Apart from obviously the extra performance that you're getting from the vehicle, but really, whether the front axle is generating energy, creating energy, doing nothing, and it's all the ICE engine or internal combustion engine driving the torque, and it's all seamless. Nothing that you need to do. Just like, I guess, driving a Stingray, it's unnoticeable from that point of view. Electric modes. So there isn't the advantage of this car, and there are some EV only modes that are customer selectable. So this is where you would have input. and we call it a secret handshake to get into those modes. And what that is when you get into the vehicle, you're probably familiar with getting into your vehicle, foot on the brake and hitting the start button. In this car, if you want to get into one of the EV modes, there's one extra step there. You get into the car, before hitting the start button, you have to select the ride mode switch or the driver selector button, and that enables, up on the cluster, you'll see 3 options there. There'll be normal mode, which is really what you're familiar with as an internal combustion engine mode. And then there are 2 EV modes. One is called shuttle mode, and the other one is called stealth mode. I'll start with shuttle mode. Shuttle mode is a mode, really, as it states, is for shuttling your car around. So it has a max speed of 15 miles an hour. It has a range of about 4 miles an hour. And really what it's set up to do is to shuttle your car around, whether it be in your garage, just to avoid starting the engine or fumes or anything in a confined space. You're able to move your car around in your garage or your driveway. Or the other scenario might be at a track. You want to keep your engine nice and cool. You might want to shuttle your vehicle to a certain position at the track just to keep that nice engine cool. So that's really what shuttle mode's all about. And if anyone has any questions, we're going to make sure we save questions for the end, so there'll be plenty of time for those to talk about these modes. I'm just really going to touch on them here. Stealth mode. So stealth mode is really your on-road mode. So the idea of stealth mode is to start the car in EV, so the car starts silently. The ICE engine or internal combustion engine doesn't start at all. There's no exhaust noise. And it's really to be able to leave your subdivision quietly, leave your home quietly. It has some limitations too. It's got a 45 mile an hour limitation. It also has about 2 to 3 mile range, but really the point of it is to be able to leave your subdivision quietly, and then the startup of the ICE engine, whilst you can select it to start yourself, and there's a few ways you can do that, that also happens automatically in certain scenarios. So once you breach that 45 mile an hour zone or limit, the ICE engine will automatically fire up and kick in. And then there's a few other scenarios where that may occur as well. One is if you command some extra throttle input, i.e. you're telling the car that, hey, I really want to go now, it will start up the engine and take off like a rocket. Call that a flying start. Other ways to start it would be in this car, the HVAC system or the heating and air conditioning system is reliant on the ICE engine starting up. So the AC compressor is reliant on the ICE motor to be able to rotate and turn and get that going. So anytime you hit a demis button, hit AC, anything like that, it will automatically fire the engine as well. Okay. A couple of other items that are unique to the eRay. We do have a Charge Plus button. So I know I talked about earlier how as a driver of this car, you don't need to do anything. It really happens seamlessly. There is, however, a button called Charge Plus that helps really accelerate the charging of the battery. So that is really encouraging the ICE motor, encouraging regen, and encouraging the battery to charge up quickly. There's a couple of reasons why you might want to do that. One of those is you really want to, the next morning or the next startup cycle, you want to start in stealth and you want to maximize your range of the battery. So you want the battery charged up. You might hit Charge Plus as you're headed home and really top off the battery and get it charged up. The other point of it is really on track. You might want to, there's different modes within the eRay on track. One of those, for example, is to be able to conduct a hero lap, where you're really maximizing the front axle and maximizing all the horsepower this vehicle has for you to really propel a car and get that hero lap. But in doing so, you're obviously depleting the battery. So the next lap you might be in traffic, or part of the lap you might be in heavy traffic, and to get that battery charged up to really take off like a rocket again on the track, you can hit the Charge Plus button and really top off the battery as well. The other feature I wanted to talk about is stop start. So there's another feature on eRay. unique to eRay for model year 24, and that is familiar with it maybe with other GM products. That is a feature that is really excels on this car as far as it being seamless due to that front motor. And due to the front motor, when the engine starts up and you come up to a stoplight, the engine shuts down, you take the foot off the brake, engine starts up again. But as you take off, that front drive motor is really pulling that as your engine warms up, as the torque comes up on the engine, and it's really seamless, that start-stop on this vehicle. Mainly, unlike some other vehicles with start-stop, not that they're not seamless either, but it really excels on this car just based on that front drive motor and really being able to pull that front axle. All right, I'm going to save any other questions to the end on that and pass you over to David Simpson.
Thank you, Trevor. So as Trevor mentioned at the beginning, he kind of has the whole car over the top. I work what we call propulsion. So like you mentioned, anyone who recognized me, I'm program quality manager of the transmission. And then for this car, I also have the whole front drive motor and the battery pack. So I'll go a little deeper into that stuff. To start, both the drive motor or drive unit and the battery pack are assembled in Brownstown, Michigan at one of our GM facilities there. They, like I said, produce both the motor and the battery pack there. So that's a really cool facility to see. So starting with the battery pack, it is an 80 cell pack, 4 different modules of 20 cells in each. They're LG cells that are stacked, and that whole battery pack assembly is part of the car structurally in between both seats. So it actually helps add rigidity to the frame or the chassis of the car overall. It's kind of been integrated and designed from the ground up in this car. So we obviously knew we were going to do this type of car and add that type of functionality with the front motor, and included that ability to have a battery pack there. So with that battery pack, we have to keep it cool. So in an E-Ray, we added 3 additional cooling loops to the car. So one of them, we had a very small coolant reservoir bottle in the rear of the vehicle. That's what cools the battery pack, and it actually uses air conditioning as well to cool the battery pack, keep it as cool as we can. Obviously, that's the worst thing you can do with electronics is get hot, so we're trying to keep it as cool as we can. That allows us to charge and discharge the battery as fast as we can. And that's what gets those really quick times like Trevor was talking about, but also allows us to charge it very quickly and then also discharge very quickly. So on that, it's a 300 volt battery. We can completely discharge all 1.1 kilowatt hours of that in a quarter-mile drag strip. By the time you slow down at the end of your quarter mile, turn around, hit the return lane, and get back to the pits, you've already completely charged that battery back up. So that's using Charge Plus, like what Trevor was talking about. That gives you an idea kind of truly how small this battery pack is, but how we've designed it to go charge in, charge out as fast as possible, to get us as much performance as we can out of this car. So the other cooling system is up front. It cools all of the electronics. So behind us in the center is our cutaway car. Really easy to see it from the passenger side. We've got a cutaway of that battery pack. So all of our electronics are actually integrated in our pack. So we don't have a module, back here in the car or up front in the car. We put all that in the battery pack to make it as small, easy to install, and kind of compact as possible. So we've got a cooling loop that actually cools our T-pin or our electronic traction inverter module up there. And then the third cooling loop is all the way up in the front right of the car. Again, on the cutaway, you can see that we had a black kind of radiator up there, or oil to air intercooler, and that cools the actual oil that's in the drive motor. So the drive motor has about 3.3 liters of ULEV oil in it, basically automatic transmission fluid in it. That's cooled through there. The main battery pack is cooled up through the front, and the condenser up there actually is dual purpose. Again, on that cutaway car shows it beautifully. It's kind of really small fins, and at the bottom they get much thicker, so that's where the cooling is for the battery pack. And then we've got the one in the back that I mentioned. So the drive motor going through that, it is an overall 8.16 ratio, and that's done via kind of the sizing of the motor with a single planetary gear set in it and then a transfer gear coming out of it. Again, I'll highlight it is one drive motor. We don't have one on each axle. It's one centered in the car that helps us keep weight down and kind of balance the car overall. And we've got that integrated differential in there to output to both axles. So it is an open differential, but again, it's very small, very compact, built into the car to keep weight down as much as we can and improve performance as much as we can. A lot of people ask, hey, how much does all that weigh, right? That sounds heavy, there's a battery pack, there's a motor, there's all this. So our entire battery pack and motor assembly weighs less than 200 pounds. So you add 200 pounds to the car and that puts out 160 horsepower. So that's a pretty impressive power to weight ratio addition that we're slapping on top of the 6.2 V8 in the back. So again, really complex, really compact, power dense unit that we add to the car overall. Remember if there's anything else major to touch there. Yeah, I don't think I had anything else specific. Obviously, we'll open up the questions from there. Trevor or I will try to get through as many as we can. If you know specifically whether you want Trevor or Dave to answer, let us know and we'll go from there. So go ahead, I'll start with you.
In weather mode, for the four-wheel drive part of it.
So
how
just
does this work? It has to have a unique weather mode.
Yeah, so just highlighting kind of, Trevor touched on it lightly, but specific question around weather mode, how we integrate the front axle to the rest of the car. So again, that's done through all the different modules. I don't even know how many exactly, but the car kind of knows you're going into weather mode. There's specific patterns on how we convert power, whether it's to the secondary axle up front or the primary axle in the rear. So the simple answer is it's all integrated, and with every drive mode, whether it's weather, tour, sport, or track, we're going to have a little bit different front motor integration based on that. But it's kind of all the same because it's always working together. Yep.
Is there a scenario in that shuttle mode on the ice?
Shuttle mode will never turn on the ice. So if you go shuttle mode, say there's an empty parking lot going around and you deplete the full battery, we'll essentially stop the car there, and it is there until you power cycle the car off, and then you can fire it back up in normal mode and drive away on the ice. So yeah, that is your way to prevent, baby sleeping inside, whatever, don't want to wake them up. That's how you stay completely quiet.
Not to confuse the matter, but if you added Callaway supercharger to the E-Ray, where you indicate right now that comes to the problems with the way that
Can't hear the question.
I'm going to have to ask you the question again. You're talking supercharger or a charger on the... So that is purely aftermarket. I can't really speak to purely aftermarket stuff, but I can't see any reason why that would change any scenario with the front axle. I just have to reiterate, it's aftermarket, so us commenting on that is difficult. Yes, front end lift, or what option code as we know it is E60, is available on the eRay.
Can you comment on the performance aspects of the all-season? I understand the performance seems to be good on the all-season.
The all-season tyre performance is amazing, and as the tyre would suggest, in all seasons. I and Dave and a few of us have had the pleasure of being able to enjoy this car in all weather conditions, including hot summer's days through to 6 to 8 inches of snow-packed road. And these tyres are unbelievably well-performing tyres.
So would be worth putting cup tube tires?
I would not recommend that. We do have the ZER package, summer tyre package, with the PS4S package on the eRay as well. For those that are really wanting to look for that little bit of extra dry weather performance in the tyre.
Is the transmission any different in that versus the Z06 or the Stingray?
So the question is the transmission different in eRay? High-level answer is yes. This transmission is based on the transmission that is in the Stingray with the ELSD or the Z51 package. So it's an electronic limited slip differential in the transmission on this car. And then we obviously have to add an auxiliary pump in this so that we can pull the car out of park when we're in those EV modes and get basic functionality. So while you're in an EV mode and you're in shuttle driving, or stealth, driving around, and we know the ICE engine is going to start up at one point, that auxiliary pump is actually there, and we're shifting forks in the transmission, just like if it was on and running like normal, kind of getting ready. So whatever speed you're at, whatever kind of speed and throttle input you have, we're shifting gears ready to go. And then as soon as that ICE engine fires up, we're already in the right gear. We just apply clutch once we have clutch pressure and take off from there. So it's based on the ELSD, which is the Z51 transmission from the Stingray, with that added functionality.
And then additionally, was there a change from 23 to 24 on the transmission?
So question on 23 to 24 transmission, I'll hit it briefly. Can talk to you a little bit more if you have more questions after on transmission stuff. But 24 and actually late 23, there is kind of a decent sized change in the transmission. A few things are updated and stuff from there. So the one thing I will highlight, touch on, or maybe I'll do two, for the transmission side is the 24 and beyond, and actually very late 23 and beyond. If you're going to the track, you don't have to add those 2 extra liters. So we've improved how we manage the oil within the transmission, get it back into the sump, and we've got a slightly deeper sump in the 24s and beyond. It's very similar to the Z06 transmission, so it's actually the same main case as the Z06. That's why you don't need that additional oil. Again, 23 late and beyond, we'll end up publishing that within breakpoint in service information. So if you need to know, it'll be in there. You'll be able to go from there. Yeah, so question on life of the battery if it's not being used or very low usage. The battery has an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on it. I probably should have touched on that to start with, which is pretty impressive, I think, especially for a brand new battery technology there. If the car sits, I know I get a lot of people, hey, I live in Michigan, so do we. Let the car sit all winter in the garage. Probably won't be able to enter stealth or shuttle right away. You'll probably need an ICE engine start there. But if you park it at 72% charge, you pull it out, it'll be right at 72%. So when you power the car off with 12 volt and shut it down, it actually fully disconnects that hybrid battery system. So it'll just basically sit there dormant until you power it back up, connect the connectors again. Yeah, so question is on how the battery charges specifically. There is no plug in this car. Probably should have touched on that. It only charges the battery over the road. So with the front axle, so Trevor touched on, you hit that Charge Plus button. What we actually kind of do is request the ICE engine for a little bit of extra power. We tell the front axle, hey, let's go into regen. So that's how we pull the extra power out of the front, push the car a little harder, and then regenning in the back. At that speed you're at. So that's how it gets that Charge Plus, but without Charge Plus, it's doing that all the time. If you're going down the hill and coasting, we're going to be regenerating as much of that as we can here.
Could you
you speak to the car's ability to use the front wheels as the rear wheels to vector steer you through a turn? Mountain driving, track driving. How do you make the decisions on how to vector that torque? With the electronic differential in the rear, you can do that right and left. With a single motor in front, can you do that? That's fun as well. So that's kind of a two-part question. How do you balance the vector steering front to back? How do you balance the vector steering right to left?
Yeah, to answer your question, the front differential is open diff. So really the vectoring is done, or the torque control is done front to rear. So rear left to right and front to rear.
Just with the, it's only available to do it in the rear, right?
Correct. Correct. Side to side. Sorry, the question was ZER option. So the ZER option is really, like I commented earlier, is the summer tire. So it's the PS4S tire is really what ZER is. Tire. Silver flame. No, the eRay, that's what makes the eRay unique, is the outboard exhaust. This is white body like the 06, but what makes it unique is the outboard exhaust. The options are the ticks, the color of the ticks, so black or chrome. Any other questions? Options that I'd recommend. Someone commented before when it comes with the front E60. That is an option that me personally would always recommend if you drive right enough. Not back at home, but it's not an option that I would recommend going forward. If the question is unique to eRay, I'm not sure that there's anything that I could say that is unique to eRay, then I would pick option up over a CO or a 06. It does come pretty loaded. E60 is probably the best one to tick the box on personally.
I'll second, nothing special eRay, but I always love the stealth interior, blackout panels on that. Again, it's a personal thing. I agree with Trevor too on some of it. I love having a car with that. When I do, if I don't, you gotta pay a little bit more attention to speed bumps, stuff like that. That's when I definitely would be adding our car. Yep, Niagara is standard on all eRay. And anything else for us right now? Okay, so we will end it there. Obviously, if there's any questions, Trevor and myself will be around to spend the rest of the day. Most everyone here from GI or Freight Polo. So find one of us. A lot of us are subject matter experts in different areas of the car. So if Trevor or I can answer your question, we have someone here that is expert in that area. All right, thanks everybody. Thank you.